Oh my goodness, it's 6:30 on the dot. We're going to begin. I'm Cindy Schatz, and I welcome you in behalf of the League of Women Voters of Mason County. We are so happy that you are here tonight. The League of Women Voters began 102 years ago in the year 1920, the year that women won the vote after 72 years of working towards that goal. We know that some women did not receive citizenship at that point. Native Americans and Asian Americans in particular had to wait many more years before they could vote. So we take the vote to be a sacred right that we citizens have. And I really appreciate all of you being here tonight to take on the responsibilities of that duty and right to be a voter. Our vision is that every citizen has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate in our democracy. And so this forum is a great demonstration of that vision that we have. The League of Women Voters has a long history of providing space for voters and candidates to have time to put their heads together and talk about the local issues and what is on our minds. And so tonight I invite you to do just that with these candidates that are here. So thank you again for being here. And I thank the candidates for being here and for being willing to run for public office and to serve the public in those offices if you are elected. Thank you. That's a great thing that you're doing. Thank you so much for that. I'd like to thank our Voter Services Committee members who've worked hard to organize this forum. And as you can see, there's lots of moving parts. So there's been a lot of work done ahead of time to make this happen. And I thank the table facilitators. Hopefully you've had a chance to chat a bit with each other at your tables. The table facilitators are going to be the boss of their table, and I appreciate all of you being here. I want to thank our media, Derek Allen in particular, who's here he's live streaming this forum on Mason Web TV, and he will be recording all the action at this table, the green eye. And so you can look at the forum again on Mason Web TV if you'd like to, or direct your friends and family and neighbors who didn't get to be here tonight to watch the forum on Mason Web TV. We also have some representatives of the Associated Press here, and we thank you for being here to observe our forum. We're very fortunate to have media presence with us to show what our candidates are going to be doing here in Mason County. So, League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. We do not support or oppose any candidate or political party. And in that spirit, we ask for your cooperation tonight as we put our heads together to talk about local issues around these tables. We'd like to have civil discussions, respect for each other, and just using common sense to talk with each other around our tables. You may be wondering what speed dating with a candidate is like. So I want to tell you how our process will work. So first, we're going to have introductions, and each candidate will have only 30 seconds to introduce themselves to you, and then the candidates have all been assigned to their first table, so they will take their places, and there will be a 5-minute question and answer period for each round. Then the timekeeper will be ringing a bell, and it'll be time to move to the next table. The candidates will move clockwise around the room. So, the timekeepers are very important to this process, and I want you to meet our timekeepers, Cheryl and AB. They're going to demonstrate what the signal is going to sound like when it's time to move or to stop talking. So when you hear that, stop what you're doing and move to the next table, or during the introduction, stop talking right in mid-sentence, and we'll move to the next candidate. So it's going to go very fast, and we all want to make it a meaningful time. So I ask your cooperation to be concise, be clear in your questions and your answers. Let's see, what else was I supposed to do? Oh, I need to introduce Joel. Joel Meyer is here tonight with us. He's going to oversee the introductions of the candidates, and he's going to be the table facilitator at this table I green, and that's where Dietrich will be recording and live streaming what happens at that table. So each of the candidates will have a time there at that table, and we'll be part of the live stream. So Joel is a communicator emeritus from PUD3. He served on local government and as news director at our local radio station. So I'm going to pass this over to you, Joel.
Thank you. And the part of the cowbell ringer and Christopher Walken will be Cheryl Williams. And actually, when you introduce yourselves, you're going to get the first taste of the cowbell, because 30 seconds is the time you're given for your introduction. Excellent. I was talking with someone earlier about what this building used to be. Price Setters grocery store. Ron Pinnell, did he run the bakery? Because I remember the baked goods were awesome, and they were right back there. And they've been replaced by vending machines. So I will start at this end, and as remember, cowbell will be your 30 seconds.
I'm going to be short and sweet. I don't want to get buzzed. I'm Jamie Taylor. I'm currently your Mason County coroner. I'm rerunning for coroner, and I am running unopposed. Any questions that you have, you can contact me at a later time. Thank you.
Good job, Jamie. Hi, my name is George Blush, and I'm running for Mason County Assessor. Much like a lot of you, I got a tax assessed value in the mail, and I wasn't happy about it. So I figured the only way to get something done is to do it yourself. So I'm here, and I'm ready to fight for it, and let's see if we can't make a change. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Frazier. I'm your current Mason County Treasurer and running for my next term. It's been my honor and pleasure to serve you all these years.
Patty Mcguire, I'm the Mason County Auditor running for re-election. It's been my honor to have the best job in county government for the last 4 years, and I want to keep doing it. I oversee elections. I'm part of county finance, motor vehicle, marine vessel licensing, and recording of documents and deeds, and I got the best staff in the world, and I want to keep doing my job. Thank you.
Charles Rhodes, running for Mason County Clerk. My campaign is predicated upon leadership, accountability, integrity, and trust, and I intend to maintain that in our office. Thank you very much. Look forward to speaking with the tables as we move forward.
Good evening. I'm Steve Dunkel. I'm running for Mason County Auditor because the people of Mason County deserve better transparency in how tax dollars are spent, better confidence in our elections, better efficiency in our licensing operations, and better timeliness in filing of county records. I want to build budgets that have more input from the people and reflect your priorities. I want to work hard to keep illegal votes out of the system and treat all legal votes as sacred. It's time for an auditor that will work full-time, that will return the elections to the people, and follow the law.
Hello, my name is Miguel Gutierrez, and I like long walks with my dog. And come on, speed dating, come on. I wanted. I'm also, I am the city council member here in Shelton, seat number 7. I've also been a special education teacher, and I've also worked with the AmeriCorps, and I want to get everyone civically engaged. And I'm running because I'm sick of internet trolls, and I want to be that agent of change and not the agent of, here's my 3-word response to your essay, okay? So I want to make sure that your voice is heard.
I am Sharon Trask, running for re-election as your Mason County Commissioner, and I have the best job. And Mason County is well known. I've been doing the job for 4 years. I have a position on the state government and every time I introduce myself, I always say that Mason County rocks, because we do.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Patty Mclean. I am your current Mason County Assessor. This is my first term, and I'm running for re-election. I started in 1991 with Darrell Cleveland, worked under Dixie Smith and Melody Peterson, who those two are here tonight. Yes, I am very shocked about my assessed value, but it's an equitable value and it's fair because I live out in rural Mason County where I grew up, and people are actually paying, it's a market value, so it is what it is. So I look forward to talking to everybody at each table and taking your questions. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sharon Fogo. I'm your Mason County Clerk, and I'm happy to be so. I'm hoping to be there another 4 years. I've started 30 years ago, actually, and I'm looking forward to serving the community for another 4. Thank you.
For 4 generations, my family of loggers and farmers has called our region home. I'm Sandy Kaiser, candidate for state representative. I have served our nation under Democratic and Republican presidents, putting democracy and the rule of law first. Right now, what we need is our leaders in Olympia who will protect our families, our jobs, and our fundamental rights. With your vote, I can bring common sense rooted in our local priorities to Olympia. So let's do it and let's get some things done.
Hi, I'm Julie Tucson, and I'd appreciate your support in my run for PUD 3 Commissioner. I grew up in our beautiful county and chose to live here most of my life. As a ratepayer and community member, I want to ensure that the PUD, or Mason County, continues to have reliable energy at affordable rates and that the PUD retains local control. I have some experience in governing, and my work experience and volunteer experience round out my skills, making me the most qualified candidate. Thank you. I look forward to meeting you.
Hey, everybody. My name is Julianne Gale, and I'm running for state senate. I'm running because I want to bring rural and small town voices to state government, because I want us to leave a good legacy for the next generations, and because I want to see state government focus on the essentials, the stuff we all need to survive: food, housing, health, education, clean air and water, good paying jobs, and us, the people who live here. Again, my name's Julianne Gale. I'm running for state senate, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is James Dehart, and I am going into my 15th year as a public servant, both at the state and now the municipal level. I'm running to be your next representative in position 1. I'm looking forward to chatting with all of you here tonight, and thank you for having me. I look forward to it.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Griffey. I serve as your state representative in the 35th District, position number 1. I'm a lifelong resident of this county. I've spent my entire 51 years here. I live in the giant metropolis of Allen, Washington. My parents moved here in 1939. I'm married. I have 4 children, 6 grandchildren, serve as the House Republican Whip, serve on public safety, serve on local government, serve on transportation. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Travis Couture, running for the State House, position 2, to replace Drew McEwen, and look forward to having a discussion with you all. I'm a U.S. Navy submarine veteran. I served on the USS Alabama and Nebraska, and I'm a program manager for Lockheed Martin, where we control a little bit over $1 billion of strategic defense assets and effort for roughly 300 employees. And I look forward to the discussion. Thanks.
Good evening. My name's Ryan Sperling. I'm running for Mason County Sheriff. I've been involved in law enforcement for the last almost 35 years, 22 years in the military, retired out of the State Patrol before I came to the Sheriff's Office, and I look forward to serving you. And if you have any questions for me, I won't be going around, but I'll be over here. You can ask me, just like with Jamie and some of the others that are unopposed.
Hi, State Representative Drew McEwen. I got stuck between the next sheriff and the judge, so I don't know what that means. Maybe I should stand next to Jamie. That might be a better option. I've had the honor to serve you the last 10 years in Olympia. I'm looking forward to filling Tim Sheldon's shoes in the Senate. It's a big shoes to fill. He's done a lot for this district, and I look forward to answering your questions tonight. Appreciate the League of Women Voters hosting this, and we'll see you at the tables.
I'm George Steele. I'm running for re-election as the Mason County District Court Judge. To take issue, I think I have the best job, and I'm very fond of my staff. I will not be making rounds because I'm unopposed. I've left campaign literature over there, and I'll be at my table, and if anybody wants to come up to me and ask a question what we're doing, I'll be around. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Randy Lewis, a Mason County native running for PUD Commissioner.
I will be the guardian of the PUD3 rate setting process. I'm an actuary, a profession that uses mathematics, statistics, and financial theory to assess the risk of future uncertain contingent events. My experience and skill set make me far and away the best fit for PUD3 as it faces severe challenges going forward. Thank you.
And thank you all, and congratulations on knowing how long 30 seconds is. That's pretty darn awesome. And as some of the candidates that were here that are running unopposed pointed out, they'll be at stationary tables watching all the other folks go table to table. So let's grab your color code and get to your table. Okay, great.
As the grandkids always say, you're not the boss
All right.
of me.
Yeah. My cats say that they're the boss of me. So, we got Tommy, Patty, and Paul. And I guess I get to start asking the questions here.
All right. Do I need to move it closer?
That'd be great. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll move this closer to you also, Paul, if you have a question. And if you have any questions you want to specifically ask of Patty after my first two or three, feel free. Otherwise, I'll make up the last two that are on the list. How's that? Okay. So, Patty, if you'll explain your that's just the start.
Oh, okay. It's like, time's up.
Or maybe they just want to know that the bell's working. I don't know. Explain your understanding of the Board of Equalization's relationship with the Assessor's Office and how it could improve.
So the relationship between the Board of Equalization and the Assessor's Office is it is a separate entity or department from our office. We already have a really good working relationship. We actually meet with them next week before we start board hearings, just kind of give them an overall analysis of kind of what we are seeing and what to expect from the board member and or from them and us. I mean, they kind of say how they're going to proceed with stuff, and then we actually, we'll go in the same protocol every single year. It's mostly via Zoom and stuff, but we have just certain steps along the way that we have to meet, and so we'll meet with them. And otherwise, I mean, I think we have a really good relationship already.
So I'm going to follow up on that a little bit. Maybe explain what the Board of Equalization is and how it works.
So the Board of Equalization is when somebody doesn't agree with their value after they get their notice in the mail. They have 30 days to file a board appeal. So once they do that board appeal, it's our office tasked to present how we arrived at the value, and the taxpayer presents how they want to defend or overrule the value and say it's wrong. So they have to provide sales and proof that it's not a correct assessed value.
Okay. Interesting question. Why do our taxes seem unpredictable each year?
They shouldn't seem unpredictable. It's an erroneous it's erroneous that your taxes will increase the same percent as your value. I had a taxpayer come in today, and it went from 400-some thousand to 600-some thousand, but we looked at her tax history, and unless you build a home, it should only, your taxes should only go up about 5%, because the taxing districts within your area you live in, they're capped at 1% growth in their budgets. And the budgets are all set by, if you got a fire district out there and there are 3 commissioners, they have to approve the budget, and they can accept, they can approve the 1% growth or not grab the 1% growth. So they're limited at what they can budget, and we track the highest lawful levy since 1985.
Okay. If given the budget and the chance, what are some changes that you would like to implement in the Assessor's Office?
Can you repeat that again?
If you were given the budget and the chance, what changes would you want to have done, or would you like to do in the Assessor's Office?
Oh, if I given a bigger budget, or
Sure, why not?
So we just got our preliminary budgets right now, and it's basically the same as last year. I would, when I started in 1991, we had 20 staff, but because of changes in the computer system and it's more streamlined, we're down to 13 right now. And I'm actually a working assessor that can actually, I know every aspect of the jobs and stuff, but I think I would try to maybe hire a couple more clerical people for support and stuff right now, because right now we seem a little short-staffed in certain areas. But then certain times of the year we're kind of slow, so we're doing a lot of cleanup projects and stuff. But I think maybe just a little bit more staff, or maybe a part-time person to help, when we're short or something.
Okay. Before I go on to one of the other questions, do you guys have any questions you'd like to ask Patty about the assessor's office?
Well, Patty, talking about the budget, Mason County residents are facing an influx of costs, inflation, gas, food. Vegetables are just up 40% recently. In light of cutbacks that Mason County residents are making in their own personal budgets, what are some opportunities for savings you could possibly suggest within the assessor's office to save financial money for Mason County taxpayers?
Well, we do get a budget, and every single year since I've been an assessor, we've given back over, $100,000 each year, so we've never fully used our budget. I do try not to buy, extra supplies. I try to live within my budget and then some. But I think a lot of it, I don't really think, I think they give us a good enough budget to live by with supplies and like the cost of our programming. TerraScan Services is our programmer for our computer system. And we have to mail out, and our postage and stuff like that. So we have very minimal budget in the assessor's office. But I think like when people get their assessed value and they see it go up like that, and it's just like another layer on this inflation, it's almost like the taxing districts. People need to really ask them kind of where they can trim back and maybe not take the 1% growth, because last year the commissioners didn't take the 1% growth, and I think the last few years they hadn't taken it for the county current expense. And so then a taxpayer actually wrote me a letter stating, I thought the county didn't raise their value or taxes, but the taxes still fluctuate a little bit, but they didn't go above their highest lawful levy from the prior year. So it's a little bit confusing, because when the values go up, the levy rates will go down. So then if you look at the line items, the county budgeted the highest lawful levy. So
okay.
That makes sense?
Nope.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Patty.
But I have every single year given back money a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is going to be fast, I can just tell. Really quick. Thank you. Whoa, hey.
Hello, look at this. This is hell. Hello.
Okay, Miguel, how you doing?
Doing great. Hi, Joel.
I need to find your sheet.
Tommy, Miguel.
Pleasure.
All right. All my information is over there as well. So, please check it out.
So please
I do log walks with my
to the
dog.
next table, all you candidates.
I wanted to be a comedian, not a politician, but here I am. So, Joe Coy, what's your job?
Tacoma native.
Huh? Is he?
Yeah, he started with Tacoma Comedy Club.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow. Okay, then maybe I should follow Joe Coy out.
Okay, let's get going on the questions here. This sounds more like a PUD question, but I will ask it of you.
Okay.
What should the county do to protect residents without air conditioning during extreme heat events?
We should find big areas like the city hall is being used for heat events as a cooling area. We could probably do the same thing with the county, is find locations where we can have cooling when it's super hot. As far as, air conditioners take up a lot of energy, so I don't know if it'd be prudent to have units or portable units for folks, but if it was possible, then maybe, but I don't know if we drain the system way too much, or but we'd have to study that. But yeah. I think just for an emergency that we should find locations where folks can chill out, literally.
This is an interesting nuance, because the county has had warming centers during the winter months.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's really odd that we should be turning around and taking a look now at having to have cooling centers during
well, climate's changed.
Yeah.
It's not, is there climate change? It's changed, period. So we have to think about all these emergencies that are coming up in the next few years, and we need to be in unison and not fighting each other. We need to be thinking about things like emergencies that might happen. Look what happened in Florida. There might be a cyclone coming up way north. Who knows, right? And then are we going to be fighting over who's Republican and who's Democrat? No, we should fight about how are we good neighbors to each other.
It is the 60th anniversary of the Columbus Day storm.
So,
wow, howdy. So in reviewing and updating the Growth Management Act for 2024, what steps should Mason County take to address the adverse impacts of climate change on our community?
There's so much we can do. I think we should take carbon we should be less extractive and try to take carbon out of the equation as much as we can. I also think we should increase our fleet of electric vehicles if we can, maybe fuel cell vehicles. We should be innovative and think about, like, we're way past the point of is climate happening or climate changing. It's changed. How do we mitigate all the different damages that's being done right now? So those are the things that I would look at.
Okay. Before we go to the next question, Tommy or Paul, do you have any questions you have for them?
Yeah, on the climate change thing, we're now looking at longer, drier summers. And we've always thought that we were immune to big fires on the side of the mountain. And the growth management plan puts a lot of dwelling units out in the woods on small lots and isolated lots. And so we're looking sometime, I would guess, at a catastrophic fire like we've seen elsewhere. And is this county, are there means there in this county to make that kind of change, to change that growth pattern?
Well, if I had my druthers, I would make eco-villages everywhere. Like we have a veterans village, right? Why don't we have an eco-village? Why don't we have multiple eco-villages everywhere? Why don't we have a senior village? Why don't we have people with cancer village? Why don't we have refugee village? We should have villages like this that are eco-friendly, tiny houses everywhere, low cost, and everyone gets a house. We can also do RV parks as well, and make sure that they're safe and that they're monitored. And we have half our cities, they live in trailer parks already. Like, what's the big deal of having a few RV parks? I think we should find housing at all levels, but especially at the low levels, and where people, the seniors especially, need to stay in their homes, and people that are economic refugees. So one of my neighbors he had to move back to South Ohio because it got too expensive to rent here in Shelton. So there's an economic refugee problem. There's a environmental refugee problem, and it's happening now, and we need to get in front of it.
Okay. I have 60 seconds. Do you have anything, Tommy, you'd like to ask?
In 30 seconds, Miguel, what, in your words, is the role of the Mason County Commissioner?
Mason County Commissioner he's a budget item guy. So he goes, hey, spend your 8% this month. Do it. And make sure it's done properly. And we're just budget control. And it's like folks, it's like you're giving allowance to your kids, and like, you spent too much that week. Sorry. Or you know what, you need it, but it's for school, Mom. Oh, okay, it's for school. Okay, then I can give you a little more this month. So basically, we're the referees of who gets money and when, and we're in charge of the budget. That's pretty much the Mason County Commission.
And that's 5 minutes right there.
Okay.
It's an interesting point. There are statutory requirements under state and local law of what a commissioner's job is. They used to be called road commissioners. Was that in the budget were the primary jobs. So,
Miguel, thank you.
Thank you.
I like long walks with my dog too.
That is so funny. Hello, well.
Microphones.
Yes.
Diedrich knows I hate microphones.
Think of it as your friend. As your friend. Would you do that to you? Yes.
I would not. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Good.
Okay, well, we just finished talking with Miguel. Now we get Sharon, and the first question I'm going to start on the second question here. In reviewing and updating the Growth Management Act of 2024, what steps do you think that Mason County should or could take to address adverse impacts of climate change on our community?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. So every 8 years, it was just changed by the legislature. Every 8 years, urban growth areas like Belfair, Shelton, Allen, we as a county have to make sure that we do an environmental impact study. And in that study, there are certain requirements. You have to make sure that environmental regulations are met. You have to make sure that you're providing services, vital services like power, sewer, water. Now broadband is being included in that also as a vital infrastructure need. So that's how we're handling it. We just did one for the Belfair Urban Growth Area 2 years ago. And so every 8 years, we have to do that.
I'm going to do a little follow-up on that. Considering that we've seen changes in population makeup, where people are building, what's been happening in the cyclical nature of our weather via climate change, what are some of the things that you think could be done to help temper that for Mason County moving forward?
That's a good question. Well, one thing we have to do is make sure that we have the houses for people to live in, and they're not, on the streets or in tents. I wouldn't want to live in Washington in the middle of winter in a tent. But in order to protect the environment and our water, the tribe works well with us also to make sure that we are following all of those guidelines and the restrictions. And I think they're a great partner, along with DNR and ecology and fish and wildlife. So we work well with the state. They tell us what we should do, and we do it.
Paul, Tommy, we've got about 2 minutes left. I was wondering if you had some questions.
Well, I'll ask a question I asked your opponent. There are two unintended consequences of growth management. One is that really more land is being developed than was really planned for, because people have chosen to do their farm ed in the countryside. And so everyone with their 5-acre ranchette clears that land. So you're ending up with more cleared land, more runoff, and since people have backyard horses, more agriculture runoff. And when there really was a lot of agriculture. So that's one unforeseen consequence. The other is, as you've probably noticed, we're having longer, drier summers. And we now have the possibility of seeing the large-scale kinds of forest fires that have previously been characterized only on the eastern side, fire side. And people forget how big the tulip burn was during the early part of the last century, and how big the Nanaimo fire was in the mid part of the last century. And those kinds of fires are now possible here. And that pushing those isolated dwellings out in the countryside creates a real hazard. So I don't know if that's really a question such and one that you can answer with live.
Yeah, I do. So back in 1990, that's when the Growth Management Act was put into place by Christine Gregoire.
I was part of the process.
Oh, were you? Oh, okay. Yeah, and so those guidelines told us that we need to have urban growth areas. And the reason they did that was so that we could keep the growth mainly inside of those areas. The lines could be adjusted.
I expect what's happened in reality is most people have not wanted to accept the growth in the limits of where their community was. Given what you have here with an outside and not interfering with their tranquility. And so I think politically that's not working the way it was planned.
No. Yeah, and I think COVID also exacerbated that, because now people can work from home. They can, as long as you got broadband power and water, then you can work from home. So it might be harder to convince people to live in those urban growth areas too.
You have a final question, Tommy?
In the amount of time left, probably no.
Shoot. Meet me afterwards.
Yeah, follow up with
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
I can get, take your time to touch base with candidates afterwards. I know you guys are going to be around later to do that.
Oh,
sounds good.
I'm here as long as you want me.
Hello.
Warm it up for me? Absolutely.
Okay.
You gotta watch out first.
Okay, got it. Hello.
Hello. Excuse me. All right. So, Sandy, welcome, by the way.
Thank you.
Has there been an uptick in crime in certain communities this past year? And if so, can the legislature provide solutions?
I think there has been a tick up in crime. I know there's a perception of it, but I believe there has been as well. And that is something that people need to take very seriously. I think in part it's tied to the unfortunate fact that we have an awful lot of guns floating around in our society right now, and it's really easy for people to use them to commit violence. I think some people are just really experiencing some very hard times as well. So I think we need a comprehensive view. We really need to fully fund our law enforcement. We need to train them, we need to equip them, and we need to hold them responsible when they don't fulfill their responsibilities to citizens. That is really an essential part of dealing with crime. I think the legislature could be smarter about not getting so involved in these very minute prescriptions about when chases can occur. And the legislature's been getting in the last couple of sessions a little bit too into like the actual professional conduct of police, and I think that leads us to some difficult places. So they tried to fix it in the last session. They didn't manage to pass any legislation to fix it, but that's still a problem.
Okay. I'm a Washington State native. Last summer's made me an emotional wreck because being a native, if we go 2 weeks without rain, I start getting a real nervous tick, and I'm just going crazy right now.
Yeah.
So maybe you can speak to the threat of climate change in the state. What policies should the legislature support to ensure resilience of communities and businesses with climate change?
Well, we're really seeing it right here in the 35th District because, we depend on the timber industry, we depend on the shellfish industry. These are really iconic legacy industries that are very important to our employment and to our vitality. And both of them are terribly affected by climate change. We have a lot of working forests, we have a lot of state forests in 35th, and they are being damaged very slowly but steadily by the raise in temperatures, which makes the trees less able to resist disease. And when they don't resist disease, they're tender. They burn easily. So I'm afraid we are going to face some very scary wildfires on the west side, not so much on the east side, in the coming years. Likewise, the shellfish industry, the oysters right now are having a hard time forming harder shells because of ocean acidification in Hood Canal and Puget Sound. And that is an existential perilous threat to this shellfish industry, which is a world-class industry in the 35th District. I'm happy to say I have support from Sierra Pacific Industries and from Taylor Shellfish for my campaign because they know that I'm very serious about dealing with climate change. I think we have to take steps, but we want to make sure we're taking steps in a way that don't put the disproportionate burden on rural people. For example, we're kind of stuck out here. We need roads. It'd be great if we all had electric cars, but we're not there yet. But we don't really have a lot of options, whereas folks in the city have a lot more different transit options. So I want to see, as we move toward decarbonization of the economy, I want to make sure it doesn't happen just on the backs of rural people.
You have some questions, Tom?
Yeah, Sandy, you mentioned the uptick in crime, one of the potential contributing factors being the sheer number of guns available. If you had your way, what laws, rules, restrictions would you recommend to be in place to help curb the crime as a result to all these guns?
I think we have, in Washington State, we have really good gun control laws, gun safety laws. I support the Second Amendment. I own a gun myself. I keep it locked up. But Washington State can have good rules, but our borders are very porous, right? I mean, people can come up from California, they can come down from Idaho. It's very hard we're not hermetically sealed from the flow of weapons in and out of our state. So this is a real problem, and that's something that needs to be tackled at the federal level. But, we have always had a hard time balancing those important Second Amendment rights with the use of guns in crime. I think it's an endemic problem, and I don't have an easy answer for it.
Thank you.
We are 15 seconds away from your 5 minutes.
You can see me adjust my hearing aids.
Yeah. So, if you got some questions for Sandy Paul afterwards,
okay. Great.
I'm sure you'll be around, right?
All right. Yeah, you bet.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And here it comes. Maybe I started my stopwatch much more quickly.
It's
than
all right.
the
It's all right.
others did. Is this your first speed dating?
Yeah, it
thing?
is. Yeah, it's great.
I really like this type.
I like the format too.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool, and
It allows more of this.
and I love it that it doesn't. You know, we all talk too much, so we just like.
You're 30 seconds.
If you would just let us go up there, oh my God, we'd all still be up there. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
I think I get Travis Couture.
Is this a table?
Okay. Please go, yeah.
A table. I'm sorry, this is the table.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, wow. Follow the director here.
Here we go.
Okay. Great. Thanks for
Read the small print on your badge.
I lost my name tag, so sorry.
Okay, so I'm going to continue on with some of the different questions we had from 35th District. And so the first question would be, what would you do to increase access to affordable housing in rural areas such as Mason County?
Yeah, we definitely need more. We need more housing all across the state, but especially in Mason County. And part of the problem is the median home price far exceeds the median income, and what income you need to qualify, especially, and that's true for Mason County and even more true for Kitsap County as well. So we need to build more houses, and how do we do that? We need building codes and permitting process that are fast, building codes that aren't kind of out of this world crazy, and we need to reduce the costs. And we're about to go into a recession, and you know, with gas prices going up another 50 cents in January, everything needs to be shipped on a truck and kind of runs on fuel. So to build a house is extremely expensive, so we need to make it less expensive. I'll stop there in case you have a follow-up.
Actually, I'll go back to the top of my list.
Okay.
And crime. Is it true there's been an uptick of crime across the state? And if so, what solutions can the legislature step in and help?
Yeah, so the 2021 crime statistics showed that there was an uptick in crime, and then 2020 was a pretty big uptick in crime. And so I think a lot of that is due to our lack of prosecutions in our state, and also our general, from the legislature, I should say, from the majority party, the anti-police rhetoric. We lost a lot of experience, and here in the 35th, we have some of the lowest per capita police in all of North America. The 35th has some of the lowest per capita in Washington State, and Washington State has the lowest per capita of all the 50 states and DC. And so I would like us to not be dead last for police coverage on the roads, because what happens is we become a soft target for crime, especially property crime, from the more urban surrounding districts and counties. So what I think needs to be done is we need to go back on the police pursuit laws that were passed. It's like the last remaining of a lot of the police reforms that were fixed. And I think we need to try to get more police coverage on our roads. And I'm willing to actually support legislation that helps divert funds to do that in rurally economically depressed counties.
You have a question there, Paul?
I'll pass.
You'll pass. How about you, Tommy?
Travis, where would you find some of these funds to get what I hear you saying are more police, especially in rural parts of the county or Washington? Where would you go in with your red pen and tackle some of these budget costs to fund your wish list, if you will?
Yeah, so there was a bill sponsored by Jeff Holy last year that's the bill I would support, and what it does is it diverts some state sales tax to help increase the recruitment and the retention funds for the different law enforcement agencies.
Wonderful.
And that's what I would support. Yep.
Can you speak to climate change in Washington State, and what policies should the legislature support or could support to ensure safety and resilience for businesses and residents?
Yeah, I think that, our forests sequester like a ton of carbon in our state, and we're lucky because we have a ton of forests throughout all of the 35th district. And I think by, there's things like keeping our working forests running. That is important to combat the additional carbon that we're producing. But I also think that we can go too far, such as, our gas prices are extremely high, not just because of our gas tax, but because of other things that we've done, like a cap and trade and a low carbon fuel standard. And those things will increase the price at the pump you see right now, another 50 cents or just about 50 cents in January. And I think that in a rural district that has to do a lot of driving because it's a bedroom community, it's killing us. And I think sometimes you have to take the doctor's approach, the first do no harm. And so we have to balance keeping people and their savings and their budgets, nice and healthy, with also keeping our environment healthy. So we got to get creative. And I ask for more of an incentivized government that incentivizes good actions and not the heavy hand that comes down and just forces things down people's throats.
Great. I think the bell's about to go off. Pretty good timing there, Travis. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Getting another legislator. Hello again.
How is everybody?
Great.
Good.
Paul and Tommy.
Paul and Tommy.
Hi.
James DeHart.
Hi, James.
And so I'm waiting for the little bell to go. Actually, I'm not going to wait for it. I'm just going to start so we can get some extra time. What do you think? I'm liking that. Okay.
Go for it.
So we've run through a couple of other questions to some of the candidates. I'm going to mix it up a little bit here. What is working with the state's mental health system, and what could the legislature do to help improve it?
So what's working with the state mental health system is that, yes, it is on state insurance, so it will help people get therapy if they need it, but that's not for everybody. And those of us with private insurance, it's a different story. So what I would like to do is I would like to bring back the promise from the 50s and 60s when they closed down all the mental hospitals in the country to bring community mental health centers for people. I find this is incredibly imperative that our people actually are able to get mental health services within their community. I know that some folks that I have met have actually had to travel 50 to 100 miles outside of where they live just to get a mental health service, just to go to a session of therapy. It's time we started bringing back those promises, and I know that it would cost money, but at the same time, it will reduce crime. If we start working on mental health issues in our society, it will reduce crime. It will also reduce mass shootings, hopefully, because every time one of those happens, what do we first say? It's a mental health issue. Well, what are we going to do about it? Oh, we're not going to fund mental health. Oh, really? Okay. Well, then we're just kind of negating the whole reason for it. So to me, it's important that we re-up ourselves on that promise.
Okay. Let's follow up with that crime question in mental health.
Sure.
Is it true, or has there been an uptick in crime in certain communities this past year? Are there any solutions? I think you talked about one.
Oh yeah.
That could help.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I would like to work on crime prevention rather than crime reaction. And by that I mean we need to look at the reasons why people commit crimes. There are some people who are just predisposed to it. That's an issue. But boredom is one thing. We've been all stuck in a house for 2.5 years, and people are flashing out because they are not a part of their community. They're not doing what they used to do. So let's create more community involvement, more community centers, and more things for people to be able to do out there. Another thing is addiction. We need to start looking at addiction services, because addiction is one of the major reasons why people are in prison, why they are arrested, and why the Blake decision is the way it is. So I like to say that addiction is not a crime. Addiction is a disease. And we need to nip that in the bud. And at that point, I know we're not going to erase all addiction. It's a human trait. But having community centers for addiction and rehabs and things like that will help people get the help that they need, and hopefully that will reduce crime in a significant way.
Okay. Paul, you have any questions for?
Well, we talked earlier about climate change. Is that fair?
Yeah, sure.
It's kind of a sharply divided but big issue. So, how do we make this area more resilient to climate change?
Absolutely. So sustainable forestry. I don't want to get rid of our forestry business here because it is a huge boon for jobs and for income around here. But we need to look at more sustainable forestry practices where we're not clear cutting because that could actually have devastating effects on the ground itself. But we need to start looking at ways where we can continue to rebuild those forests that we have cut down. I love what they're doing on Highway 3. As you go there, you see this is the replanted forest. I love that. Let's keep doing that. Another thing is using sustainable infrastructure upgrades, roads, bridges, as well as trying to clean up Hood Canal, because Hood Canal is the largest shell fishing bed in the country, and it's a big part of our way of life here. So we need to work on ways where we're not dumping raw sewage into Hood Canal that acidifies the water. To me, that's how we're going to save our environment here, is finding ways to deal with human waste, both just garbage and elsewhere, and figuring out ways to get rid of that and taking care of our soil, our water, our air. So I would be looking into different ways we can do that. There's innovations every day. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or 10 years from now, but there's going to be somebody who figures out a way to do something. And so I'd look at that and bring it all in.
Okay. Do you want to challenge the 30 seconds we might have left there, Tommy?
Hey, James, you brought up innovation.
Yeah.
How would you support, how would you encourage innovation? Would that be a private sector? Would that be government, or a hybrid of both? How do you foresee it?
I like a hybrid of both, to be honest with you, because I think it is incumbent on the government to help take care of its citizens, but also private industry does amazing things. And so I think if you get private industry funding plus a little government funding, it can go a long way and create a lot bigger products for innovation.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Nice seeing you.
Another legislator.
Pardon me?
Another legislator. Bring it on in, buddy. Bring it on in.
What?
How's it going there, Dan?
Oh, we're sitting here.
Yes, you are.
Right on. How is everyone?
Great. How about you?
I am tired. But yes, I am fine.
The marathon, yes.
It is
right?
a marathon.
Okay, well, we're going to jump right into it here. Is it true there's been an uptick in crime in certain communities this past year? Can the state legislature provide solutions?
Yes, absolutely. So the majority party passed legislation that emboldened criminal activity all over the state. So murder is at almost an all-time high. Overdose deaths is almost a all-time high. Property crimes is definitely at an all-time high. Nearly $3 billion worth of product walks off our retail establishment shelves annually. And our retailers are absolutely suffering from the lawlessness that has happened, the emboldened criminal activity, knowing that it's been published that law enforcement can't pursue criminals any longer. So we saw twice now where somebody that committed a felony actually dialed 911 and tattled on law enforcement for pursuing. So we have emboldened those activities. What we can do about that is we can bring back a reasonable suspicion for Terry stops. So right now, law enforcement, their ability to engage with an individual that is exhibiting suspect behavior. Maybe it's somebody that's prohibited from having a gun and they have a large bolt in the front of their pocket. It used to be law enforcement could use reasonable suspicion to say I've pulled that guy over with a gun, or I've stopped that guy with a gun before. He's prohibited from having a gun. They could do an inquiry and ask if they're carrying it. They no longer can do that. They actually have to witness a crime before they can go after criminals. The criminals know that. The people that are actually injuring society know that good and well, and they are taking advantage of law enforcement. So we have to bring back reasonable suspicion, and we have to be able to pursue people again. And we have to go after fentanyl like we have never gone after anything before. Fentanyl now is being pressed into highly colorful little tablets that look like Pez, and they're trying to distribute it to our kids. And if you look at fentanyl overdose in Washington State and fentanyl death, it should alarm everyone. We are giving Narcan. When I was a firefighter in June, we were given Narcan almost as fast as we could restock it. Right, we couldn't keep enough Narcan, the counter-antistic drug. Every jurisdiction, including law enforcement, is saying that they have that problem, that they're having to dose many people with Narcan. And it is, it's out of control. And we cannot let another terrible drug take a hold on this society. We're going to have to attack that. If we continue if the legislature doesn't take action, hard drugs, possession of hard drugs will stay legal. So they'll do nothing about it. If that happens, I'm dropping a preemptive bill that says anytime law enforcement finds methamphetamine and fentanyl, that it must be confiscated, that it is an illegal substance, and even if they're not going to charge for it, we cannot allow one pill of fentanyl to be in the community, is how dangerous it is. So I think there's many levels. We can bring back reasonable suspicion as a way for law enforcement to engage and do a Terry stop and inquire if somebody is doing, engaging in criminal behavior. What that'll do is, I believe if we keep the pressure on, that people will actually change, and they will know that people are actually looking for them doing things that they're not allowed to do, and I think it'll start slowing things down. But what is really alarming, Joel, is it feels like the 80s again, where we have rampant gang activity and nearly a murder or two every night, and it's just terrible. We have to give our law enforcement proactive policing powers back again so they can go hunt down criminals before they injure society.
How many other questions?
You talk about the party in charge of the legislature really handcuffing, if you will, law enforcement. And I think many people would say that was a heavy-handed response to a lot of negative press that law enforcement across the country has received the last couple of years. Where do you find the balance between proactive legal law enforcement versus the no charge, no pursuit that is currently in place?
Well, I think
30 seconds before you run. So
yeah, I do think that the balance is absolutely that we have to give our law enforcement officers a reasonable suspicion back, right? I think it is definite balance. They have to be able to actually intervene before the rape, before the murder, and stop those things. We actually have to pursue criminals when they injured society, and make sure that they they're not able to murder or rape at that time. Anyway, sorry,
I'll let you get to the next table. No, it's okay.
This is so quick.
Thank you.
We need to work a bathroom break. How are you?
Dude,
I'm Drew McGill.
I'll be done with this in about 30 seconds there.
Drew.
Yes.
Depends.
Oh,
man, that's rough, buddy. I'm gonna end the interview here.
Okay, let's just jump right into it. What would you do to increase access to affordable housing in rural communities such as Mason County?
We need to overhaul our regulatory environment in this state. The GMA, which largely governs a lot of these issues, was passed in the early 90s when our state's population was 4 million. Today we're pushing 8 million, and we have never opened those books again to look at what's working, what's not working with GMA. That's a problem. You can look at the Energy Code Council that has mandated a number of changes to home construction that add roughly $40,000 to the cost of a home, but do very little to change the energy consumption. That's a problem. We wonder why housing's not affordable. In most of rural Mason County, you can only build one home per 5 acres in a lot of areas. We wonder why housing's not affordable. We look at the continued regulatory and tax burden that's placed on builders, and it's a death by 1,000 nut cuts, and we wonder why housing's not affordable. Let's get out of the way. Let's look at rezoning. Let's look at overhauling the GMA. I believe we can have growth and protect the environment and maintain a rural lifestyle, but what we have today is flat out not working. And I think better zoning that's more controlled at the local level is a big part of that solution, as well as the statewide regulatory overhaul.
Okay. What is working with the state's mental health system, and what can the legislature do to improve services?
Yeah, so my answer is kind of the same to that. Got to rehearse this for the last 6 staples or whatever it is. So on a bipartisan basis, we've done a much better job the last few years in getting more funding to the local level. And why is that important? When you treat somebody at the local level, it's more effective for the person being treated, and it's more cost effective. And you look at our behavioral health systems that we have in a number of counties, look at our treatment facilities with chemical addiction. We're doing more of those. Is it perfect? No. We need to work out some of those kinks, and I'm not an expert on it, but I listen to some of the things going on locally with the facility we have here. We have people that need help here getting sent to Yakima, and we're ending up with Yakima people at our treatment facility here. There's a problem in the system there that we need to address. I don't know what the solution is, and if that's done at the local level or at the state level, but let's figure that out. That's not being effective. But let's continue to increase our funding to behavioral health systems at the local level, because when somebody has a mental health issue and maybe acts out, throwing them in the county jail or Western State Hospital is not the solution. So we've got to treat them, and we got to treat them at the local level.
Paul, do you have some questions for Drew?
Well, I on the housing issue, just thinking about a different way. Right now, across the U.S., housing prices have soared. But one of the reasons it's soared is that there's an affluent upper middle class with a lot of buying power, and the builders tend to build houses for those people. And the result is that they're not building low-cost housing. So how are you going to make it possible for people to low-cost housing? And is that going to be apartment complexes, or will these single-unit family home be a thing of the future?
No, that is a great question, and part of that issue too, which certainly we don't have control over at the state level, is frankly a total mismanagement at the federal level on economic policy that has resulted in a bubble that is an issue and has been an issue. But to get to the crux of your answer or your question there, going back to what I said about the regulatory and the tax environment, a builder is in business to have a profit, right? I think everybody would agree with that. If your margins are continuously getting crimped and crimped and crimped, would you rather, and I'll just make up a figure, would you rather make 5% on a $100,000 home or 5% on a $500,000 home? So because we've put so much burden on the industry and squeeze those margins, it doesn't make sense for a lot of them to build lower end housing. So let's incentivize that. I'm for having more multifamily housing. I think that's a great part of the solution. We have zoning issues that make it impractical to do that. So there's a number of issues, and you have a great point on that. But let's look at what that root cause is. And again, it comes back to an overbearance by the state in a number of levels with our building industry.
We might be able to get another question if you got one, Tommy. If not,
off the top of my head, no, not right now.
Okay.
Great question.
What position do you play on the hockey team that you participate in?
I'm a forward typically, so center or wing. Yeah.
All right.
You can't maintain this figure. I played since I was 4 years old. Love the sport.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you guys.
Drew.
All right. Have a great night.
Oh, another 35th District Legislature. Let's come. Excuse me.
Hello. Julianne Gale.
Hello. Welcome. You're the guys that are getting the PE element of this whole deal, walking from table to table to table.
And talking at a rapid rate as well.
There you go. Yes. Okay. Oh, could you speak to the threat of climate change in Washington State and we're over already, and some of the policies that should be considered to help address that?
Yes, so this is one of the most important things to me. I'm a co-founder of Mason County Climate Justice, and I've committed my life since 2015 to thinking about environmental and climate justice. And I run a youth program, and when I look at those young people that I work with every day, I want to be able to tell them I did absolutely everything I could to ensure a livable future. One of the biggest resources that we have in our district is our forests. And I think one of the biggest things we can do is have a sensible transition from outdated clear-cut logging to climate-smart forestry. That would improve our economic stability, it would improve our climate resilience, our resilience to climate change impacts that are already occurring and will increase. It will create higher quality wood products. It would create more jobs. And the reason that this is so important is that if we regenerate our forests to their natural state, we could sequester more carbon per acre with our forests here in Western Washington than the Amazon rainforest. So what we do here is not just important for us locally, but it's important for the entire world.
I'm going to follow up on that a little bit. When you're talking about the sequestration, would you be wanting to have, say, for example, incentives in tax or land use or some sort of matrix for forestries, both the large foresters, but also the family tree farms that are in the state?
I think we get together as a community and talk to every stakeholder to decide what's the best option to meet our priorities and our goals. I think, for example, there's something at the federal level called the social cost of carbon. If we paid small forest landowners as well as large forest landowners and even, say, DNR, if we paid the social cost of carbon, our county could make 5 times the revenue that we make right now from timber. That being said, I think there's lots of options and we get to talk about all of them and decide what makes the most sense for our community.
Tommy, I'm going to turn it over to you so you have more time this time. How's that sound?
More time. Outside of climate change, what are 2 or 3 pressing issues that are directly impacting our area that you want to see changed or improved?
One of the biggest things is that rural and small town voices are not being heard in state government. My heart's independent, but I'm running as a Democrat because I want to make sure that our voices are heard in the majority caucus where so many decisions are made. Another issue that I see and I hear over and over again is the housing crisis. Can you remind me, did you ask solutions to or just what are they in general?
Just 2 or 3 problems. If we have time, if you want to provide solutions or suggestions, I think Paul and I are open to hearing from them.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's go. We've got a minute and a half.
All right, well...
Solve the problems.
So let me just start by saying I'm a first-time candidate, and one of my strengths is listening to people. We have so much expertise, skills, and lived experience in our community, and the best legislation comes when every stakeholder has had an opportunity to provide input, and there's already community buy-in. So I can throw out some ideas, but it's got to be vetted by the community, and we have to come together to decide that this is what we want, and this is how we're going to move forward. So, for example, some ideas that I have, say, when it comes to housing, one of the reasons we have a housing crisis in our rural and small town communities is because the urban areas have had a long time housing crisis and they haven't solved it. For example, in Seattle, about 75% of residential zones in Seattle are zoned as single-family homes. That makes no sense in an urban area, the densest area in Washington. If you want to live in a city, then live in a city and allow the rural areas to stay rural. So fixing some of the zoning laws in our urban areas would protect us from some of the housing crisis we're having out here.
Back around 2006, there's something called the Community Forest Act. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not. Would you like to educate me?
Well, the intention was to make small communities more viable by dedicating forests within the immediate zone of that community usually for value-added forestry. Do you see a role in that?
Absolutely. I think community commons and public lands are really, really important for well-being, and that forests are important for community well-being as well.
It'd be worth looking up to see what this is.
I have actually heard of it now that you described it to me. Thanks.
There are examples up around the area around Premier, and you might check with their folks in this.
Thank you. Can I?
Thanks, Julianne.
Thank you. Would any of you like some wildflower seeds?
Yeah. Yes.
Sure, why not? What are the wildflowers that are in here?
It's a mix of 25 Pacific Northwest natives, so I can, if you email me at the email on the back of that, I will send you a picture of the package. I buy them in bulk and spread them out.
Thank you.
That's how she gets her email address.
Also, another thing to think about is for forests to really be.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
Well, contact me later because I love to talk about this. It's a passion of mine. Thank you.
Randy.
Oh, this is the immediacy. This kept falling off my shirt, so I put it on my water bottle.
Okay,
I'm Randy Lewis. I'm running for PUD3.
We now know who you are. Excellent. Thank you.
That's good. So who are you? I'm Randy. So what's your function here?
Pardon me?
So who are you with?
Him.
Me.
Oh, okay.
This is Tommy.
Him.
Hi, it's a pleasure.
So you guys all, what organization are you connected to? Or?
I'm just a voter, Mason County voter.
Okay.
So we can get context. Where do you live in Mason County?
Hoodsport.
Okay, so you're probably a Mason PUD1 customer, but some of the issues that are relevant.
My parents have property in PUD3.
Excellent, there we go. And where do you live, Paul?
Well, I used to live on Johns Prairie and Camilche, but right now I'm living on South Thurston County.
Okay, so you would be in PUD1, Thurston PUD service territory. Okay.
Well, it's interesting because if you look at the map, you get into Hoodsport, PUD1. You go up the hill to Cushman, you cross the line somewhere, and you're back to PUD3. And and I'm not going to talk about it, but there's an interesting backstory on how that happened. The other interesting thing is, look at the map. You go up Hood Canal north to Jefferson County. At some point, there's a line, and you're in PUD voter territory. But what I learned the other day is all those people up there are serviced by PUD1, yet they're PUD3 voters. So it's kind of interesting. Anyway, go ahead with your questions.
Okay, let's move on here.
Hi, everybody.
What role should PUDs take in planning for climate change and extreme weather events that could affect electricity services?
Well, that's kind of my wheelhouse. Like I said, for decades, I was part of forecasting events. You need to forecast many scenarios in the future, put financial impacts on that so you can mitigate bad scenarios going forward. We do something called an efficient frontier, which is basically risk reward, and this is the best you can do, and you go to the deciders and they say, given your risk threshold, these are your options available. One thing I'm concerned about, well, Bonneville sells PUD3 energy wholesale and sells it to the rest of us retail. Bonneville is basically rivers and dams, clean energy. Although the state, for some reason, doesn't call it sustainable. That's another story. Head scratcher. But anyway, whatever you think about the cause of climate change, it is a reality, and there are bad scenarios that could happen. Suppose there's a big drought, and the water supply gets cut in half, for example. What do we do then? Well, these types of scenarios need to be forecast, put numbers on them, How do we mitigate it, rather than it happens in 15 years and it's like, oh crap, what are we going to do? So that should be done ahead of time, and that sort of thing is in my wheelhouse. One thing that is concerning me, Bonneville, which is a federal agency, had signed a deal with a California power entity, and PUDs in the state could not do anything about it. Bonneville is a federal agency, and I was looking at the press releases from that California company, and they're almost bragging that, oh, this is cool, we're going to get credit for clean energy from the state of Washington. Well, they didn't say it, but that kind of implies that we're going to have to take the credit for their dirty energy. And in my career, I've been involved in complex negotiations. Trust me, I'm going to get involved in this. And to be fair, Annette Crepom, who's the manager of the PUD3, tells me that they're already looking to mitigate bad effects of the deal. But when I get in there, I'm going to be very much supporting that effort. And I believe I have a unique skill set where I can talk to them in their own language, and they can't snow me.
So, Randy, is there a role for nuclear power going forward in the region?
I think yes, but they have to clear a high bar. If they could demonstrate with metaphysical certitude that the unfortunate byproduct of nuclear waste could be put somewhere safely, almost certainly nothing bad could happen, and they can demonstrate it and do all the testing, whatever they do, then yes, I would sign off on that, because my understanding is nuclear, aside from that, is sustainable and clean. So I would support that. But that's a high bar. Obviously we don't want any Chernobyls or anything like that. Talking to Amy Davis, she had a good idea. Maybe have local, small power plants where the byproduct is more easily handled. I thought that was an interesting idea. So anyway, see you, everybody.
Thanks, Randy.
Randy Lewis, PUD3.
Thank you, Randy.
Well, good meeting you.
Don't stumble over mine. Oh, there we go. Julie's got it.
Pardon me?
Julie's got it.
There you go.
Oh.
Hi.
Hi there,
I'm
Julie.
Julie. I'm running for PUD3 Commissioner.
This is Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Tommy.
Hi, it's a pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
So, here we go.
There we go.
We'll just roll. You probably have answered a lot of these questions already,
yes.
But what are your thoughts on the Lower Snake River Dam proposals that have been suggested by the federal government?
The removal of
Yes.
the, well, it's my understanding that's been put on hold, and that they have interagency agreement to continue looking, but not to fight it out, I guess, right now. I think that there needs to be a viable alternative to the energy before we start taking away energy sources. As far as there are a couple dams, I can't remember which ones they were, that had more fish returned to them this year than since 1962. So that's a little promising. Maybe we look at, there's alternatives to improvements that can be made to fish ladders until that gets figured out, because that's probably not going to happen the next 4 or 5 years, the removal of dams. So what can be done in the meantime to mitigate the issues there?
Okay. Given that hydro is considered a form of renewable energy, what about some of the other forms of renewable or green sources of power that are kind of floating around as solutions moving forward?
So solutions, nuclear. I would be open to exploring nuclear options, small nuclear units. They're clean, not as expensive. It's still very expensive, but not like they used to be when they were engineering each one individually. Grant County has entered into an agreement to explore nuclear. Be interesting to see what they do there. favorable.
I'm going to throw something out here, and it's what I call the "build it, we dare you" syndrome. Is that there's a great desire to have resources such as solar, wind, geothermal, things like that constructed, but it seems that there's regularly opposition to those because of either land use, viewscapes, things like that. Do you think that communities on both sides of the Cascades have a responsibility and the ability to build such electricity generating resources?
I think that, I think both sides should definitely contribute to that. Eastern Washington probably has more of a wind source than we do. I went to school in Ellensburg.
Oh, enough said.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are those things to look at when contemplating how to move forward with something like that.
Okay. How about you guys? Do you have some questions?
Oh, I wonder, have you traveled east in this country?
Pardon me?
Have you traveled east in this country?
Traveled east to like...
Through across the mountain states and into the Great Plains states and Midwest?
Like on a road trip?
The main thing that you're struck by is how much wind power is going out there. If you go up to Canada, in Alberta, in southern Alberta, there are huge wind farms, and in every corner of what's the equivalent of a township down here is a energy storage facility and a solar facility. The solar facility alone can run all the powers for all the ranchers and farmers. So I think a lot of people don't realize that except for the storage problem, those solutions for those kinds of energy problems are here now. They're not tomorrow, they're here now. And so solving the storage problem is an immense problem.
I'm sorry.
Solving the storage problem is an immense problem. To not commit now to more of that kind of energy, I think, is short-sighted.
The wind and solar?
Yeah.
Yes.
And,
No.
On nuclear plants, our European models are more efficient and safer than the American ones. But the waste lasts for tens of thousands of citizens, and it stays deadly for a while.
Right, and then I just heard that making the windmills is detrimental to the environment. So it's like you have to, the pros and cons of everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We need an environmental question about groundwater.
Okay. Let's see. Who do we have coming up next? I don't know if the county clerk can answer that question.
No, I don't think so either.
But good point. Interesting thing about the Pacific Northwest having wind and solar as part of its mix is having the hydro system as a large battery makes it easier to use.
Storage battery.
Yes, right.
And some of the reservoirs are being used that way now.
Correct. Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
How
Now
are
I
you?
need to find my clerk.
I'm Sharon. Nice to meet you.
That's my sister.
I'm
Get out of here.
It's a
Nice to meet you, Tommy.
Okay, here we go. And now I can begin. Hello.
Hi, I'm Sharon Fogo. I'm your Mason County Clerk, and I'm hoping to retain my position.
Okay. So, in what way does the clerk ensure the separation of powers among the three branches of county government, executive, judicial, and legislative?
So, the county clerk's office is the executive branch. We work very closely with the judicial branch, and we keep the separation. That's the whole job of the clerk's office, is to keep the separation between the judiciary and the public, so that there's not any ex parte communications, so that the judges don't appoint the clerk because of that same situation. We don't want to show any favoritism for any of the cases that the judges have to hear. So that's why we are maintaining that. The legislative branch are the ones who give us the rules. So we just follow their rules and the court's rules and do what we're supposed to do as mandated.
So I'm going to go away from the questions for a second here, because I think that when people think of your office, I'm not really sure what you do.
And that's very common. So we are the keepers of the record for Superior Court. So we have documents back to 1884, and so it's a court of record. So anybody that wants to look for something, that's right, it's all on microfilm from that far back. So we can read it, print it out, and provide it to whoever asks for it, as long as it's a public record. If it's an adoption, we can't even tell you that there is an adoption unless we have a court order telling us that they want to open a particular record. If it's a dependency action where the state's trying to take away children from a bad situation, we can't tell you that unless you come to our counter and show us ID. And same with mental illness cases. So that's those are the highly integrity. We don't let anybody even hardly talk about them, let alone look at the documents. So
you're kind of the keeper of the keys, but you're also the administrative function that keeps the court going.
That's correct. So we take in all the paperwork, we process the paperwork, enter it into our database, scan the image into our digitized document management system, and make it available to whomever needs it.
So that is one of the questions on here. What has been the process for moving to digital formatting? Is it complete?
We've been digitized since 2002. Sorry, for 20 years. Let me put it that way. We've got all of our documents on an imaging system. From 1998 to 2001, we currently have hard copies. We have the actual court files, and as time allows, we're working towards getting those out digitized as well. We don't have a whole lot of downtime in the court system, so I'm looking into hiring a temporary part-time position to get that project done, but I'm going to need a new scanner to do that because the one that from 2017 is starting to show its age, and the one from 2021 is the one we like to use for the daily work, so it would be helpful to have a standalone system.
More questions for?
Who was the favorite growing up? No.
I was, because I was the baby.
Two questions. First, just for those of us that simply don't know, where does your office get its funding?
So our funding comes, it's a mandated office, so we don't get a whole lot of funding. We have filing fees, we have legal financial obligations that pay for a portion, a very small portion of our office. We aren't really money makers, we are doers. So we do passports, which is not a mandated function as well, but it does bring in some funds for the county. We have resources like we've got grants for our mental illness cases. Part of that is paid through behavioral health resources from TRICARE and Telecare. I'm sorry, that's the name of it, is Telecare. And we do have a grant for what's called BECA Bill, which is child in need of services, at-risk youth, and truancy cases. We get some money from the state for that, as well as our therapeutic courts. We have a drug court program, a veterans court program, a mental health program, family recovery program that we also get money for.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a quick question. I remember when Mason County shared a judge with Thurston County.
Yes.
How many specific Mason County Superior Court judges are there now?
There are three court judges, and then we have a 3/4 time court commissioner.
Okay, great, thank
you. So 4, essentially.
Mr. Rhodes, how are you?
How you doing, sir? You want me to sit here?
Please be seated. Thank you. This is Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Tommy.
Charles Rhodes.
Hi, Tommy.
Tommy, how you doing,
Pleasure.
Tommy? And I know Joel.
Hey.
Everybody knows Joel.
No,
I'm the only one that doesn't.
One of the things she didn't mention is that I believe I still hold the record for the shortest county commission term in Washington State history.
How many days?
2.5 months.
Oh, did you?
I'll tell you the story later. Okay, so if given the opportunity, what changes would you like to implement in current jury services in the clerk's office?
First of all, for me, I would like to have one assigned jury manager. Right now, they have dual roles, and what I mean by that is the jury manager is also handling the accounts receivable or the collections. They're both full-time jobs, in my opinion. I've been an accountant for 43 years. January will be 44 years, and I'm a fraud examiner. So my employees leaving me is not okay with me. Those are these people that are leaving are good employees. I hate to see them go.
Okay. Can you describe what the clerk's position is?
Yeah, the county clerk is the administrative and financial officer for the courts. That's according to RCW. That is what they do. That is their title. That is their job, and that is within their purview of their job description. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So, in what way does the clerk ensure separation of powers between the executive, judicial, and the legislative on county?
Okay, we have nothing to do with the executive or judicial. The only thing that we have to do to deal with is the legislative, and they make and create the laws. That's what is our governing body within the clerk's office, is the RCWs.
So, moving records to digital format. How important is that? Do you think it's been completed? Is it being done appropriately? Is it doing well?
It is not. It is not done. It is. It has not. There's still quite a bit to be done. There is. People have asked me as far as creating, taking the documents and putting them to digital format. You basically have to do it. You have to be dedicated. You have to do it. It's not a matter of days off is not really an option. There's a lot to do in that office. There's digital format. There's over 3 million documents above the jail that have not been scanned or digitized or put into an Odyssey format, which is what we use. So that be then we have $41 million. $21 million is restitution to crime victims. That wasn't, and Tommy, that's not something I'm coming up with. I'm not trying to slander my opponent by saying something that's not true. I received that from the administrative officer of the courts through the public disclosure request. That's how I know that. We have approximately 18 million of non-restitution, which is fines, fees, non-restitution payments. The restitution goes to, if you've ever been a victim of crime, and I think we all have, that money goes to us. But if it's not being collected, I hear stories from certain people that that they can't afford it. What if they go broke? Well, I'm sorry, they committed the crime. See, I see things a little different than most people, I guess. I believe that these individuals should be responsible. If they have assets, if they don't have assets, wait until they do, and then we collect.
Okay. And how does this office assist immigrants?
Okay. And specifically, what you're talking about is mom.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. That seems to be our the questions. The mom is, we have access to a translation line. We can, it costs us money, but we can go ahead and incorporate that into the budget, and then we can come back and we can tell that we can tell them that we can have a translator come from one of the courts down to us. They have access to the translation divisions and so forth. I have been in Judge Steele's where he's had to have a mom translator, and he has had no problem getting one. So I believe the same thing. I believe that I can do the same thing.
Okay. Do either of you guys have any questions?
I hope I answered your questions, and I'm not, because if I sound flippant, I don't mean to. Oh, well, hey, that's pretty good. Thanks, Tommy.
You. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tommy. Joel? Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are getting close. We have 3 candidates left. Steve, hello.
Hey, Joel. Hey, Tommy.
Hello, sir.
This is Paul.
We've met twice.
Oh,
the third time.
Excellent. Okay. I know that they are giving people extra time to move on, but dang, I was going to say if I start now, I'll have 30 seconds extra. No, I won't.
Here we go.
Okay. So do you support the continuance of vote by mail, and if not, what changes would you like to see?
Well, I want to do what the people want to do. So you got to keep in mind vote by mail is a state level decision. And so if the people want to stick with vote by mail, then I'm going to advocate that we get more security features incorporated into our paper ballots to protect against forged ballots and fraudulent ballots. If the people want to go away from vote by mail and go back into in-person voting, there's a way to do that too, and I would encourage everybody to take a look at what's happening in Europe, where they have had the same experience as we with vote by mail and voting machines, and they've been bit and burned by it, so they are going back to same day, 1 day, in-person voting, hand counting of the ballots, and they know the results by the end of the night. Just like we used to do. I'm sorry?
Could you offer specific examples?
France.
Yeah, whole country or
the whole country.
Or regions or cities?
They've gone back to that. So some people want to go back to the old days, quote unquote, or be more like that.
In France, was that to the actions of one particular political party or faction?
That, sir, I do not know.
Or was it a consensus thing of their parliament?
Nope, I've just been studying what's happening abroad, because there are countries that are going back to the future, if you will, back to a format that we used to have here in the United States, or in this state with in-person voting.
Okay. Something I don't think people realize are all the other different things that occur in the auditor's office. And we talk about elections a lot because that's like a spotlight thing.
Yeah.
But what are some of the other things that are done in the auditor's office? And one in particular, I'm sure you've answered, is the preliminary budget process that starts in the auditor's office.
So the auditor, as chief financial officer of the county, he or she and the financial services department are responsible for preparing the preliminary budget. That budget is built by inputs from the various departments across the county and pulled together, and then ultimately goes through a review and approval process by the county commissioners before they start spending money against it.
And what are some of the other functions that the auditor's office does other than
licensing of your cars, boats, and trucks? And also they file the permanent county records, such as property title transfers, marriage certificates, and things like that.
It's interesting that many of our local offices are kind of like Swiss Army knife agencies.
Yeah. This one is like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Okay, let's talk about the integrity of voter rolls in Mason County. When and how are they updated?
Our state, Washington State, is one of about 31 states that subscribes to a service called the ERIC system, and it's electronic record something. I don't know the acronym. I should have got the acronym. And that system provides auditors with, I believe, a monthly report on voter registrations that should be taken a look into, determine if they're still valid or not, or if they're names that should be removed from the voter rolls. That's one way. What the current auditor does to clean the voter rolls, I don't know. But assuming I am elected auditor, I want to get a lot more aggressive about cleaning up our voter rolls, because to me, even one one error in the voter rolls is too many. I often say that one illegal vote disenfranchises every other legal voter. And it's a hard thing to stay on top of. Voter rolls change every day. People move in and out of a county, right? People die. People, circumstances change. So you have to stay on top of it. It's not something that you can just, I think, that you can just do periodically or when you have the time and availability.
Tommy, you've got a minute here to ask a question of Steve, if you'd like, about elections or the auditor's office in general.
Outside of elections aside, where do you think you can make the biggest impact for residents and voters in Mason County?
Well, I often talk about wanting to bring whatever elements of the auditor's office I can back to the people. And I would like to look for ways, find ways to get more taxpayer input into the budget. I know that's not an easy thing to do, but I want to work with the commissioners and see what is possible in that arena. I also want to provide taxpayers with a lot more transparency on how their tax dollars are being spent, because that gives them information that they can use to help hold elected officials accountable. It's their money.
Wow.
That was a fast cowbell.
That
didn't seem like the full 5 minutes. It was.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
But a good conversation. Thanks, Steve.
See you, Joel.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
When I worked at KMAS Radio, some of the really far-flung precincts where you get the boxes in the town, they had some sheriff's deputies out to get the ballot box out the room. Because folks who were like in the water, of course, that's not the way it works. But every election night was a party. Every election night was a party. Because everybody was at the courthouse. And even in the coldest months of the year, it was burning up in that courthouse. Hello, Patty. How are you?
I need to talk to the microphone, right?
Is the microphone on?
Yes, it's good. The little green light is on.
Yes,
anyway.
excellent.
Okay. Diedrich's giving me the nod, so I'm good.
Okay. Whew, welcome.
Thank you.
So, do you support the continuance of vote by mail? If so, why? And if not, what changes might you want to see implemented?
I love vote by mail. I was Deputy Secretary of State in Oregon when vote by mail was implemented statewide. The 2000 presidential was the first presidential election in which a state conducted their entire election by mail. I was there overseeing that. I think vote by mail is the most voter-friendly and still absolutely safe and secure method there is for voting. I mean, when the pandemic happened, we had to make very few changes, and other states had to make monumental changes to their systems, and ours were incremental at best, and that's great.
Could you maybe quantify whether or not vote by mail has increased participation, voter turnout? Any data there?
So yes, there is. It does not make a huge difference in high interest elections. So presidential elections, the difference is pretty small. But in low interest elections, school levy elections, school board elections, those February and April elections, it makes a big difference. We routinely see 30% turnout, whereas if you go to elections like that next door in Idaho, they'll get 7 or 8% turnout. So high interest elections, not so much, because people are going to vote, people are going to walk through fire to vote in a presidential election, but low interest elections, it makes a big difference.
Okay. We talked previously in our conversation with your opponent about, I called it the Swiss Army knife that is the auditor's office.
I call it that funny drawer in the kitchen that has all the stuff that nobody knows where to put it.
So how important do you think it is to keep, like, for example, the preliminary budget in the auditor's office? Is that statutory?
Yes, though by law the auditor can give that authority away. And 5 or 6 auditors around the state have done that, have given that job to their county commission. I think it's a really, really important job for the auditor to do, and here's why. In places where the county commission has that authority, they tell the independently elected officials, you can ask for 5% more, which is what they do to the departments in the county that they control. The county commission will say, make your budget request and you can ask for 5% more. But they don't say that to me. They don't say that to the sheriff. They don't say that to the other independently electeds when I'm running the preliminary budget. I go out and say, tell me what you need to do your job, and whatever that is. So, for example, the first 2 years that I was auditor, I asked for funding for a county voters pamphlet. It didn't get funded by the commission, but I got to stand up and say, this information for our voters is really, really important, and I think you should fund it. Again, it didn't get funded, but I got to ask for it and wasn't limited. If they had said you can only ask for 3% more, I wouldn't have been able to even ask for that.
Okay. So if a department recommends a budget increase for their budget, do the commissioners tend to respect that if you build it in the budget?
You know, they have a mighty tough job because, you know, there is a finite pool of money. Unlike the federal government, they don't get to borrow. So, you know, funding something new and shiny for my office may mean a sheriff's deputy. I mean, so you know, they have to conduct that balancing act, and that's their job. I mean, and it should reside there. So, I mean, we have a fiscally conservative county commission that has left this county in really great shape financially, and that's awesome. I mean, I'm all for that.
You have a question?
So the countywide voting ballot pamphlet, you didn't win. But share with voters what is a financial win that you got for the county from your office?
Well, so ultimately, we did win on the voters pamphlet because, and this is a big financial win, is we went to legislature, I'll be very quick, we went to legislature and said you need to pay your fair share of election costs. The state didn't used to pay its fair share, they now do. And part of that is making counties, I worked very closely with with Senator Hunt and got him to require us, every county, to produce a county voters pamphlet. That's state law, that's why we do it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. Those two seem like they went really fast. Hello.
How we doing, guys?
Doing well.
Good, thank you.
My name is George Bush. I'm running for Mason County Assessor. And I'm happy to be here.
And we're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
I think you're our last.
Yes, this is you guys are the last
wow,
one.
The green eye.
I like it.
Okay, let's get a head start on the timer then. So could you explain your understanding of the board's equalization's relationship with the assessor's office and how it can improve?
Absolutely. The Board of Equalization is who the citizens are tasked with going to. If you receive an assessment in the mail that you're not happy with, and you go down to the assessor's office and you say, hey, look, I wasn't taxed fairly, I don't like the way this looks, I think you guys are wrong. And then the assessor says, nope, that's not true, we're right, you're wrong. And then, you know, you go back and forth there for a minute, and if you're not getting anywhere, then you have the option to go to the Board of Equalization, who is supposed to be a fair and impartial body that can either, you know, go for you or against you.
Okay. Some people have said that they think their taxes are unpredictable year to year. You think they are?
Yes. I mean,
why?
I think bad management on a lot of different. The bottom line is that's if you look at you look at the government like a business. If it's not run correctly, you're not making any money, and you're not going anywhere, and you're not getting any better. I mean, take a look at what we have right now. Things are pretty bad, and we need to get it back to where it's supposed to be. If anyone gets taxed out of their home while the county is buying brand new things, that's a problem. I'm as chairman of the housing authority, I get to see people that get priced out of their homes, and they have to come live with me in Section 8 housing. And you know what? Nobody wants to live there, realistically, but it's supposed to be a step up. But unfortunately, this is where they're gonna, this is where they're gonna retire at, and this is where they're gonna be forever.
If you had the budget and the chance, what changes would you want to see?
I want to see us be more involved in making sure that the community is aware of what's available to them. I think, there's a lot of seniors and whatnot here that they don't know how to use a computer. I have people that come into my restaurant that have no idea how to use a computer. So it's not even reasonable to assume that they're going to go onto a website and figure out how to fill out all these, applications and, lowering their taxes and whatnot. So you have all this, this fat that's not being trimmed. There comes a point in time where you have to stop that, and we have to start fighting for the people again.
Okay. Now, the Department of Revenue mandates methods for determining real property value. What methods will or do you think should be used to evaluate real property value?
The methods that they use, unfortunately, from what I've sold, they can't be changed. It's it's basic. We look at what the marketable value is around you. Look at what the sales around you are going for. And then they look at what it would cost to build your house in the current market, and then they figure out the assessed value based upon that. I think that we need to figure that out. We need to, because if you do it every year, okay, stuff goes up and down every year. I think we need to get back to the old system where they did it every 4 years. Because that way it's at least somewhat reasonable. If every year we're going to change your assessed value and everything, then it gets us into the predicament that we're in today. We're looking at another housing bubble. Realistically, I mean, take a look. We've seen all these signs before, and this is what happened. And I think that it's irresponsible the way the government's handling everything currently.
Paul, do you have a question? How about you, Tommy?
What is a disadvantage for going back to every 4 years on assessing value of real property?
I think it slows everything down a little bit, but I think that's good. And I think on that side, it needs to slow down how quickly we just jump to making people's values go up. So I believe that was the thing about it. Because let's be realistic. I mean, some things have to be done. If we have new construction, obviously that's going to need to have someone come in and look at it. But if you have the same house that's been on the same block with the same other two houses, how much does it change in a year? I mean, I put a coat of paint on my house, and I put up a new fence, and my house was, I think I paid $140, and it came out to, now I'm up at like $450,000 they want, they have me assess that. It's just nutty. I think it's irresponsible, and I can afford the taxes on my house. Realistically, you know what I mean? It's not a problem. But I've seen a lot of the seniors around us that can't. I mean, in the housing authority, I can bring you to 10 little old ladies that are going to be in there for the rest of their lives because that's what's available to them, because they lost everything in the 2008 bubble. And that's not fair. How many times do we keep doing this over and over again?
Raises a question about outreach for seniors that might benefit from the low-income senior discount or the reduction in taxes. What kind of outreach might you suggest to do to hit that?
We have to go to your house to assess it every year anyway. Why don't we come up to the door with a pamphlet and say, hey, are you aware of this? I have an 86-year-old guy. I own Nita's Coffee Shop. And when I have an 86-year-old guy who comes in there, and I asked him about this, because I knew this would come up. Hey, dude, have you been on the Assessor's website to take a look and see what we have for different breaks for you? He looks at me and says, what's the website? I don't even know where to go to look for it. Thank you much, guys. Appreciate it.
You guys were awesome.
Work, everyone. Thank you so much.
You did really.
I just want to make a couple of announcements before we end our evening. Yeah. I just wanted to tell you about our league meeting that will happen next Tuesday. It's a webinar, and Sherry will have information for you. Thank you for being voters. You will be receiving your ballots next week for the general election on November 8th. So thank you again. Excellent job. Give yourselves a big hand. Great job, everybody.